Hi, it's Elodie, the owner of Bordeaux with Elodie. I'm back today to talk to you about Bordeaux wine region and just get over a little introduction about Bordeaux and the wines that we produced here and the regions. Today I will go over the location of Bordeaux, why is it so important, the different appellations that we have in Bordeaux and the amazing terroirs, the wines that we produce in these regions and what makes Bordeaux so special. To start, Bordeaux is located on the 45th parallel, and if you notice, many great wine growing regions are located on the 45th parallel too. Bordeaux has a very moderate climate. This is also because we have all these very large points of water. So looking on the map, we can see that we have the ocean that is right here, the Atlantic Ocean, but we also have the Garonne and the Dordogne River, which are two rivers coming from mountains. We have the Dordogne River coming from the center of France, and we have the Garonne River that comes from the Pyrenees, the mountains that are between Spain and France. These two rivers throughout history have been bringing a lot of great things from these mountains and been leaving sediments and rocks, and so this history has made that we've been having also amazing terroirs near this river. But let's go back to the importance of these points of water right now. So it makes that the climate is actually quite moderate, and the winters are never too cold and the summers are never too hot. So of course, you know, we can have some days going up to 40 degrees Celsius, more than 100 Fahrenheit in the summertime, but it's quite rare. It really doesn't happen that often. Same thing in the winter, you barely see snow in Bordeaux, right? It happens once in a while, but this is not something that is very common. We also have, coming from the ocean, the Gulf Stream that comes from the south, which has a very important impact also. And we planted back at the end of the 18th century more than 250,000 hectares of pine trees that are located right along the coast. So these pine trees are very important because they also protect the whole Bordeaux regions from ocean winds.
You probably wondered why in Bordeaux we often talk about left bank wines and right bank wines. Well, it's actually because we have two rivers. We have the Dordogne River and the Garonne River. So whenever you have vineyards on the left side of these rivers, we talk about left bank. And when we have vineyards on the right side of them, we talk about right bank. And what's in the middle, right, between these two rivers, is called entre deux mers, which means in French, between two seas. Even if it's rivers, you understand the point, right?
So let's go over a little bit the main wine regions that we have in Bordeaux and the appellations that we have. So you have to know that in Bordeaux we have around 60 appellations. We are actually the region in France that has the greatest diversity of AOC, which is the appellation d'origine contrôlée. So it's the recognized appellation. Once again, an appellation is a geographic limitation. So we define these areas because they have the same types of characteristics when it comes to terroir. In Bordeaux, 60 appellations. So I won't go over all of them, but I will have separate videos about the different AOC and the different terroirs of Bordeaux. Today is just an introduction, so I just want to give you a little idea of what we do in Bordeaux and how to understand better the Bordeaux region, the wines from Bordeaux. I was starting from Medoc because a lot of people know Medoc. It's on the left bank, so Medoc is quite a large area going along the Garonne River. In Medoc we have a lot of prestigious smaller appellations that are communal appellations that you might have heard of, like Margaux, Saint-Julien, Saint-Estèphe, Pauillac. This is where you can find the very famous chateaus of Château Lafite Rothschild, Mouton Rothschild, La Tour, Margaux, etc. So a lot of people know already these appellations. in this appellation, we plant a lot of Cabernet Sauvignon. Cabernet Sauvignon that we blend mainly with Merlot. And the third grape variety that comes in the blend is usually Cabernet Franc. And you even see sometimes some Petit Verdot or Malbec. So those are the grape varieties that are allowed to be used in the blend to be a Bordeaux. You have to remember that in Medoc, what is the most planted is Cabernet Sauvignon. But it's never alone. We always blend it. In Bordeaux, we are the kings of blending. We almost always blend grape varieties. In Medoc, the king is Cabernet Sauvignon because the terroir works very well for Cabernet Sauvignon. It's actually a lot of rocks, a lot of gravels, so it's very poor soils, and the Cabernet Sauvignon loves it because it's gonna have to suffer to actually live in this ground, and it's gonna grow very deep roots. It will be able to survive whatever conditions we have. Also, the gravel is very important because you're gonna have a warmer atmosphere because the gravel is gonna keep the sun, the warmth of the sun during the day, and at night it will give it back to the plants. So usually when you come to Medoc, you'll see the vines are trained very low. And this is something that can be quite surprising. It's because there's no humidity on the ground with this gravel, so we really want to take advantage of this warmth. Because also the Cabernet Sauvignon is a grape variety that needs sun and heat to actually be fully ripe. And in Bordeaux, we are not the warmest region ever, and it's not the sunniest region also, even if the weather is really pleasant, right? Then if you go on the other side, on the right bank, another very, very famous area that you probably know is Saint-Emilion and Pomerol, that is a neighbor. So these areas are in the right bank, and it's a much smaller area. We grow a lot of Merlot over there that will blend mainly with Cabernet Franc. And the third grape variety that comes in the blend is Cabernet Sauvignon. So you see, it's two different worlds. However, I would say, please, it's not because you don't like the Merlot from California that you don't want to give a chance to the Merlot from Bordeaux, because it has nothing to do with it. The terroir where the grape variety grows is gonna change so much the typicities of the grape variety that you shouldn't just stop to the fact that it's Merlot, and the fact that it's blended almost always, the result has nothing to do. Also, we have much fresher ground, so we have a lot of limestone and clay in Saint-Emilion, and the limestone is amazing because it's gonna give to the Merlot this freshness. The limestone is like a big sponge, so you know the water won't be saturated in it, but it will be able to give back whatever water it needs to the plant when it needs it. So even if it doesn't rain all July and August, which happen quite often, or May, June, July, for example, the grape variety will still be able to find what it needs in this ground without saturation. Just to compare with the Medoc, in Saint-Emilion, the vines are trained higher because we have a layer of clay on the ground. So it's very important that the vines are not too close from that, because if it rains a lot, it means that the water will stay on top of this clay, and it means that we can have much more risks of mildew and disease linked to the humidity. So it's really interesting to actually visit these two regions when you come to Bordeaux, because you first, the landscape is going to be very different, but also the history, the whole experience, the wines, of course, everything will be very different. So you should really subscribe to the channel and check the new videos that will come out about Saint-Emilion, Medoc and the other regions, so you really can compare and have more visuals and more explanation about why you should choose this region or both, and come as soon as you can travel to visit them, right? In Saint-Emilion, just like Pomerol, the neighbor, where Merlot is also the dominant grape variety, and in Medoc also, all this region, actually, I didn't talk about white wine because we can produce white wine if you want, right? But it won't be recognized by the appellation. So it means that you will have to label your wine as a generic Bordeaux wine. So you won't be able to write on the label that you are a Saint-Emilion or a Pomerol or a Medoc wines. So it's not really often that you find white wines that are produced in this area. So usually if you are a red wine lover, it's great, but if you only drink white wine, we will take you to the Grave area. We will show you Pessac-Léognan and Sauternes. So Pessac-Léognan is another amazing area of the left bank in the south of Bordeaux. And in the region of Pessac-Léognan, we produce amazing dry white wines, mainly with Sauvignon Blanc, Semillon, some Muscadel sometimes, famous. We have also some Sauvignon Gris that we can use. So some wineries produce both red and dry whites. And if you keep on going south in the grape area, you will arrive in the Sauternes area, very famous, with Chateau d'Yquem, for example, that is the king of the Sauternes. And Sauternes is a sweet white wine that is amazing. The region is also very beautiful, and the whole technique to produce Sauternes, the whole vinification, is very different from what we do for red wine. So it's very interesting to come and discover the Sauternes area also. In Bordeaux, something that is also very important is the vintages. From one year to the other, the weather can be very different. So the winemaker will have to do the best with the conditions that we have each year and really express at best the personality of his wine with the climatic conditions he had to deal with. So very interesting to get more into the different vintages of Bordeaux, to know if it's a vintage that is going to be a big vintage, if it's more classical vintage, if it's a vintage that will have a very good aging potential, or if it's a vintage that we will drink earlier. We'll never find the same wine from one year to the other, and I think that's what makes also the beauty of Bordeaux wines. Something also very important about Bordeaux wines that I think you need to understand is how Bordeaux wines are sold. So throughout history, Bordeaux wines have been sold through wine merchants and brokers. So most of the time when you go to a winery like a Grand Cru Classé, right, a lot of wineries, like family-owned wineries, sell their wines at the estate. They have their networks of salespeople, etc. But a lot of wineries do not sell wine at the estate directly. They sell wine only through this network of merchants that they work with. So nowadays, because wine tourism is getting a little bit bigger here in Bordeaux, a lot of wineries actually have a few bottles, like a few vintages for sale at the estate, but it's not their main business, or it's not the way they sell the most their bottles, right? It's only actually for their boutique and for the family that they keep a small proportion of the production, but most of the production is being sold through this network of brokers and merchants that's been existing for decades and decades, if it's not centuries. So just to go back a little bit to the cycle of how we make wine in Bordeaux. So the winter time, we prune the vines and we let it rest. So winter is going to be from December to March, more or less. And then, once the vine is going back to life, right? Once the sap is going back up, buds are coming out and the leaves are coming out and the flower and the grapes, magical moment. It's usually mid-September to mid-October, more or less. That's when harvest is happening, and that's the most exciting time of the year. So it's super interesting to see this moment happen here, and a lot of wineries are doing everything by hand, so it's very cool. So when the harvest is going into the cellar, we're going to go through the processes of alcoholic fermentation and maceration and malolactic fermentation, and the wine is going to go into barrels for the aging.
So in Bordeaux, we've been using French oak barrel for a very long time. Today, I'm in the barrel cellar of Chateau Carignan. It's a beautiful chateau. I want to tell you about this French oak barrel because that's where we are aging the wine, usually 12 to 18 months, even a little bit longer sometimes, mainly red wine. So in Bordeaux, we use French oak barrels that are 225 liters, and it's actually 300 bottles of Bordeaux wines. Most of the wineries are using several barrel makers. They each have their own touch, and they each have their own pick of oak woods in the forest. So the best oak trees are coming from the center of France and East France. We use usually 80 to 90% French oak, but some wineries are starting to experiment with American oak and Eastern European oak. We usually use the barrels for 1, 2, 3 vintages, sometimes a little more, and sometimes only one vintage. It's a very important investment because one of these babies can cost up to 1,000 euro, or even more depending on the specificities of the barrel.
So I hope this was a good introduction to Bordeaux wines, and please let me know if you have any questions in comments below. Do not hesitate to share the video, like it if you enjoyed watching it, and please subscribe to the channel so you get notified when new videos are coming out. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you are all safe and healthy, and see you soon. Bye bye.